So the big question is, will a bunch of these NFL records be broken now that there's a 17-game regular season? And then if you think yes, it's like, who's the most likely candidates to potentially break them? So Geoff, will any player break the regular season passing yards record of 5,477 and a half? Yes is sitting at plus 190. Who do you think could break it?
I mean, let's address this in two parts. First of all, I mean, it's a nice idea to think that these records get broken, but the leader in pass yards last year was Deshaun Watson with 4,823. I mean, we're talking about it's not like a tiny gap we're looking to fill here. This is a chasm. I mean, this is like 600 yards here. So, the odds probably aren't big enough for me to really like this. And also the NFL, it's starting to get a little bit smarter with like load management, and when we get to week 17 and things like that, guys sit. So again, there's a lot of things in play here. Like, you might not even get 17 games from a player who's on the verge here, even if it comes down to it. So there are three players I think have a shot at this, a legit shot. One of them is obviously Patrick Mahomes. I think we all know that. We know what he can do. Dak Prescott is the other one. Again, to hit this record, you need a perfect blend, a bad defense, a team that's going to be throwing a ton. I think the Cowboys fit the bill. The dark horse is Russell Wilson, because he's got a new OC. He's got DK Metcalf to work with. We saw what Russ did in the first 5 games of last year. If the Seahawks somehow revert back to that offense, I think he can do it. But, it's still not really a bet I'm interested in. Just take the over on all three of those guys. It's probably a better bet.
All right, Kenny, I bet you're just not really interested in. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a whole lot interested, but Geoff, with his last name, really hit who I like. I like Russell Wilson. He was 8th in passing attempts last season, and a 7.5 yards per pass I thought was pretty, or per completion anyway, was pretty good. Look, I think that you have to categorize it. You have to look at a guy that's going to throw a lot. I actually looked at Ben Roethlisberger here. He was 3rd in attempts, but I do think that the Steelers with Najee Harris now are going to throw a little less. Matt Ryan's missing a weapon. Tom Brady's probably going to, once again, just have a lot of short fields to work with that Tampa Bay defense, and then they're probably going to run the ball from ahead. It's a hard one, really, to figure out who you want to go with. Russell Wilson's probably the best option to break the record here. Also, Patrick Mahomes, maybe Justin Herbert. A lot of these guys are probably not going to play every game because maybe their team is going to be positioned for the playoffs. Herbert maybe not as much as Patrick Mahomes, but it's scary. But Russell Wilson did play 16 games last year. I think he's probably my best bet to break the record, but it's probably not one that I really like to play.
AJ, would you like to play it, and who do you think could do it?
If the odds were a little higher, I might be willing to take a look here. I don't love plus 120 to get that. I do think Mahomes is probably the favorite. One dark horse name I'll throw out there, just because he's a guy that always seems to rack up yardage, is Matthew Stafford. I know, he's obviously not on the Lions, not slinging it to Megatron like he was back in the day, but I think this is still a guy that could throw up significant yards. But honestly, for me, the best bet, if you like passing yards, I like Mahomes to just lead the league in passing yards at plus 350. If you do think Stafford can be a dark horse here, you can get him plus 1,200 here to lead the league in passing yards.
All right, next up, guys, will any player break the regular season receiving yards record? Yes is sitting at plus 250. So, Kenny, what do we think? Who could break it?
Yeah, I don't really know about this one, because I think that there's going to be a lot of regression in the league's leading receivers. When you look at Stephon Diggs, the Buffalo Bills are going to play. Not only are they going to play a tougher schedule, but Emmanuel Sanders is in the mix as well. Devante Adams, I think that last year was really his first year of sustained success, and we're not sure. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to consistently do it every single game once again. But, I mean, he's probably, again, the best option to break this record, considering he had 115 receptions last season. And a lot of these other guys up at the top of the list are going to either have competition for targets or they don't play on the best offense. And I think that right now, looking at a team that's just probably going to throw the ball, probably top 5 rate in the league, I would say that Devante Adams would be my favorite. But again, I don't know really if there's going to be a team that breaks the record here, because we are going to deal with a longer season. I think we're going to deal with load management in the NFL for the first time because of that extra game. I think that we could see a player sit, maybe mid-season or mid to late season for a game just to kind of manage their load. So I'm a little scared of it. Adams also did miss a couple games last year, but I would probably say he would be my favorite if I had to pick one.
All right, AJ, what do we think?
I'm a hard pass on this one. I think, look at when Megatron set that. It's him and Stafford, he had 204 targets that year. The next closest player in receiving on that team was tight end Brendan Pettigrew at 517. So you're talking about like a one-man offense that really just dominated here. We're not going to see anybody, I think, anywhere near 200 targets, maybe ever again. And I just don't think the rushing game there wasn't there either. You talk about some of these other guys, maybe a Tyreek Hill if Mahomes has a good year, but they also have other options on the team, and that was just too good of a congruence of situations for Megatron to set that record, and I don't see anybody breaking that anytime soon.
All right, Geoff, what do we think? No one's breaking this one anytime soon?
I'm a little bit more interested in this one. First of all, we're getting better odds at plus 250, so that perks me up a little bit. But, with the 17 games, again, I think there's a couple receivers here who, AJ mentioned you need a boatload of targets. I think there's a couple guys who are really just going to be their team's primary receiver and just going to see the ball all year. And I think the first name that pops to mind is Calvin Ridley. 150 targets with Julio gone out the door. I know Kyle Pitts is going to take some of those. He's a rookie, though. That really may not end up as being as much as people think. Ridley going to be on a team with a bad defense. He could just be peppered every game. I could see that with the extra game. He's got to stay healthy. It's a big ask. DK Metcalf, I already brought up Russell Wilson. The new quick-hitting Seahawks offense, I think they could just pepper DK with targets as well. Again, I know Lockett's there, but I think Metcalf is really going to develop into the number one receiver there this year. So I think this one's a little bit more intriguing. You got a guy like Allen Robinson could see just 200 targets as well. I think there's a group of players that at least have a shot at this with the extra game this year.
Okay, guys, will any player break the regular season rush and receiving touchdown scoring record of 31? AJ, yes, is plus 1,200. So what do we think? Could anyone do it or not very likely?
I don't think LaDainian Tomlinson has to worry about losing this record or the rushing TD record either. You would need a guy like Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, or Dalvin Cook to beat their personal best in terms of rushing TDs by nearly 10. And you have to imagine at max that extra game would, maybe 3 if that extra game was a huge one. I just don't think there's enough chance here for anybody to do that. Again, it's very similar to what I was talking about with Megatron and the receiving yards. You need a rush-only offense, a guy who's just completely able to take over the game that way. And while all 3 of those guys are solid and I think will have great years, I don't think it'll be that good.
All right, Geoff, what do we think? Could anyone do this, or are you not worried?
I mean, I like the plus 1,200 odds, but this isn't going to happen. Not even close. Again, NFL with load management. You have guys like Dalvin Cook, Kamara. But look, the teams, like they bring in Latavius Murray and Alex Madison to take some goal line touchdowns. You do that even 3 times a year, and this isn't even going to come close. I don't care how much those guys play. This one, it's just with the new NFL, even with the extra game and the way the teams operate with an RB tandem, it's not going to happen.
All right, Kenny, what do we think?
Yeah, I'll say no as well. Sorry to be a buzzkill, but yeah, I think that even like you look at an Alvin Kamara, I'm not very high on him this year, considering what happened last year with Taysom Hill. When he came in, Kamara was a disappearing act. And if you had to pick one person from years past who you'd think maybe has a chance at this crazy record, it would be Alvin Kamara. But I think he's out of commission right now. I don't think he's worth picking, because if they put Taysom Hill in as starter, he's cooked. And speaking of cooking, I mean, Geoff mentioned the Dalvin Cook timeshare. I mean, all these running backs, again, because of the longer schedule, I think we want to bet these records, but we also have to recognize that teams are going to be careful with their players with the extra game, because I do think that makes a difference. We saw, again, the preseason get cut down by 1 game because teams were preaching that, that extra game is a big deal. We didn't see the extra game in the NFL for a while because players and coaches and staff members were, hey, this is a big deal. An extra game is a lot. So I think that, these guys are going to be kind of managed pretty well, and I don't know if this is going to hit. So I do like always betting plus 1,200 odds on like anything, but not this.
All right, finally, will any player break the regular season rushing yards record of over 2,105.5 yards? Plus 700 if you're taking yes. Geoff, like, who could do it? Anyone?
Well, I mean, look, Derrick Henry came within like 100 yards of this, under 100 yards of this last year. I'm actually a little surprised that we're getting plus 700. Look, it's a big ask. I get it. I mean, we got 17 games. It's Tennessee so far in front by week 17 that they just sit Henry. But we're talking about like one of the most durable backs we've ever seen in the NFL over the last couple decades in Derrick Henry. a guy who is just an absolute, man among men. I mean, it's ridiculous how oversized and how just durable he is. So yeah, I think this is the odds here just add up. You've also, on top of Henry, Dalvin Cook in 14 games, 1550 yards. I don't like him for the touchdown hit, but I mean, I think the Vikings are going to go absolutely heavy on him this year. I think he's going to have a big year. So I am interested in this one. I think the odds are a little too juicy here not to take a little piece of this. I think this is absolutely doable for Henry. You need the Titans to stay competitive in a competitive race, though, right up to the end.
Ooh, Kenny, are these odds a little juicy for you?
They are. I think multiple players could break this record. I think this is going to be the year of the running back. I think that Derrick Henry has a good chance, as Geoff mentioned, but I'm looking down at a guy who you could even bet him to lead the league in rushing, and I think you'd get insane odds. How about Jonathan Taylor? He was 8th in the league in total carries last year. He started only 13 games. He played only 15, and he had 232 carries. He did manage to go almost to 1,200 yards with them. And look, I know that they do have Nyheim Hines and some interesting guys in that backfield, but it seems for all the world that Jonathan Taylor is just going to continue to get fed the rock. That worked for them the second half of the season. It was the reason why the Colts are one of the most imposing teams in the AFC. I think it was going to be a big year for the Colts. The injury concerns that we had in the preseason are no longer a thing. It seems like everyone's supposed to be healthy for week 1. So, yeah, I think that Jonathan Taylor could have an absolute monster season here. And really, the Colts, they have some interesting receivers. They have Carson Wentz, but I think their game plan is just going to be run.
AJ, how do we feel about this one? And do you feel like multiple guys could break this?
I do think it's possible. I shout out to Kenny for the Wisconsin Badger love there. But, I lean with Geoff. I think Derrick Henry's the guy to watch here. And for my part, I think you double down. You take your plus 700 on that, double down on him, plus 350 for him to lead the league in rushing right now. As Kenny mentioned, Jonathan Taylor's plus 900. That's another intriguing option. And I wouldn't even sleep on a Christian McCaffrey plus 1,000 to lead the league in rushing. I think he'll be motivated after missing out last year. I'm not concerned about any sort of, lingering impact there. So there's a number of guys that I think could do it and some really good odds that you can get to lead the league in rushing on the DK Sportsbook.